I'm D. Watkins here with Salon TV. Today I'm here with extraordinary hip hop artist, supreme lyricist, legend, Talib Kweli, here to talk about his brand new book. I'm really excited today. Most of your fans, we know you from not just being a hip hop artist, but for owning the legendary Nikiru bookstore, for being an activist, an outspoken person. But now you added being a writer to the canon. So what was that like? What is the comparisons of finishing a book versus finishing an album?
Well, I'm definitely humbled. Well, first of all, I appreciate your kind words, brother. Thank you. I'm definitely humbled to be in this new creative space because I'm confident in my skills as an MC. But in the world of literature, in the world of writing, my competition is not other MCs. My competition is Maya Angelou and James Baldwin and Richard Wright and people like that. And so I just hope that I did those people proud. I want to stand on the shoulders of my ancestors. And, I hope that my story comes across as a story of hip hop itself. That's why I called it Vibrate Higher, a rap story, because I am not who I am without my parents, without my community, without hip hop, without Jay Dilla, without Madlib, without Yasin Bey, without High Tech. People like that, without Kanye. So I don't just tell my story in this book. I tell these people's story as well because they make up who I am.
Well, let's get into the title, Vibrate Higher, a rap story. What made you choose Vibrate Higher?
I feel like my career has always been as an artist, and because me as an artist is the same as me as a man. I don't separate the two. And so my career as an artist, as well as my path as a man, has always benefited from me trying to raise the level of my consciousness and thus raise the level of the consciousness of the people around me. That's been very, very rewarding for me as an individual. And I just think that that's what it is. If I had to choose a religion, my religion is compassion. And vibrating higher or trying to move away from our base self and sort of trying, because we all are not perfect, we all have flaws, but trying to live at the highest possible frequency is something that makes the whole planet better. And so when I think about my life, that's what I've attempted to do. And this book is chronicling my attempt.
One of the things I wasn't expecting when I picked the book up, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, is it's not just your personal story, and it's not even just a personal story of the people who influence you. Like when you talk about Yasin Bey and when you talk about just Madlib, everybody who you just named, it's your personal story, but then it gets very intricate with pieces of their personal story, but it's also like a hip hop history book. I feel like a lot of times when there's this disconnect between the younger generation of artists versus the people who paved the way for them, part of that disconnect is some of the history that you laid down not being put in the context for them or laid out. Could you speak to that as far as the creative process?
Yeah, I feel like with hip hop academia, hip hop literature, there's still a huge gulf of non-information or misinformation, and things get dated quickly because hip hop moves so fast, right? So by the time someone has detailed their hip hop story, it's already old school usually. And me working in the bookstore at Kiro Books, me reading all these rappers' biographies, me being around when Trisha Rose first wrote Black Noise, and when Nelson George wrote Buppies, B-Boys, Baps, and Bohos, and then when Kevin Powell and them and the poets started putting their writing into a hip hop context, I understood that we have to tell our own stories. I understood that my unique perspective had not been told. We've read in the academic sense books about how hip hop got started in South Bronx because of the highway the gentrification, and how the music programs being cut in New York City, and Zulu Nation coming together, and the gangs now becoming b-boy crews, and all that is well documented. We have Style Wars and Wild Style, and we have Rhyme and Reason, and I'm just thinking about hip hop documentaries I've seen, the show, things like that. Beyond that Netflix episode, there's a hip show, I forget the name is what it's called, but there's a hip hop docuseries on Netflix that chronicles every era, but they sat down with myself and Yassine and the people from the Raucous era. I've never really seen any real documentation on that era, on my unique perspective, where I'm born in 1975, and when I came of age, hip hop was I saw hip hop start, but when I came of age, Das Effects, Cypress Hill, Tribe Called Quest, these were platinum groups. Underground hip hop was a platinum sound. So we think about that. That when people talk about that 90s era hip hop, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about House of Pain and Annie Up and things, records that, MOP didn't go platinum, but everybody else in that era went platinum. And so I'm not old school as like a Melly Mel. I'm not old school like a LL. I'm not old school like a KRS-One. So I feel honored and blessed to be able to write the Raucous story. The people who were to write for the people who were in college when Raucous happened, to write for the people who've seen LP go from Company Flow to Run the Jewels, to write for the people who were excited when Madlib and Dilla and MF Doom, rest in peace, were all collaborating in the mid 2000s. Like, I don't feel like that era has been that well documented.
No, I feel you. It's and it's important. Like the way you do it is so cool, because it's just, you show universal love. So like, you talk about what was happening in the conscious community versus what was happening mainstream, and then you talk about like the different connections. Jay-Z hopping on your song, your interactions with people like Diddy, and how people always treated you as a lyricist, and that love that exists. Because a lot of people think that if you fit into a certain type of group of hip hop, you're just boxed in. But it's like, we are coming for it.
Yeah, a friend of mine said to me that, talking about People's Party, the podcast, and he made the point that, he said, we have the hardest, most gangster rappers on here sometimes, and they all show you love. They all show you so much love. And people will be surprised that the hardest, most gangster rappers are really in their spare time listening to Talib Kweli. And what I said to him was, it's not just me. It's the caliber of MCs, and it's particular caliber MCs that I roll with, that if you are a gangster rapper who's really about making this hip hop music, that you are someone who spends your spare time listening to Talib Kweli, listening to Mos Def, listening to Common, listening to Pharrell Monch, listening to Black Thought. And that's really about it. There's other conscious artists that I love and respect who are dope, but I find that the people I just named, who are my immediate friends and peers, we are a group of rappers that other rappers look to as a vanguard. And I love that. I think that's because the people who make gangster rap music, who are serious musicians, they're not doing it because they're trying to be tough guys. They're doing it because they're trying to reflect and represent a reality in the streets. And when they hear me and Black Star and Black Thought and Common, they say, okay, well, those brothers over there, maybe they're not gangbanging, they're not selling drugs, they're not hustling, they're not pimping, they're not trying to sell sex, they're not trying to rap about their car, but they come from the same neighborhoods we come from. And a Black community is not a monolith. Even though that these guys are not playing a tough guy role like we doing over here, we recognize that they are speaking to a reality in these streets. And they recognize that people in these neighborhoods should be listening to the messaging that we're trying to get across. And that's why it's always been a mutual respect. When I first came in this business, one of the first industry parties I went to, the Locks was there. And I remember being across the room and be like, damn, they go to Locks, man. I'm such a fan. and not even thinking that they would ever know who I was, because this was raucous era. I just put out a couple of 12 inches, and they came up to me and they was like, yo, we like what y'all doing over at Raucous. And that helped me out as an artist. It broke down some walls for me and made me realize that even myself, as much universal love as I have to give, I even have my own biases about what a quote unquote gangster rapper might enjoy. And I've learned so much about that. I don't make those same mistakes in that way. All of us artists are in this together.
One of the things that frustrate me when I see how people outside of our communities critique our communities. The dude on the corner hustling might be the one to put that man child in the promised land, or that the Bluest Eyes book in your hand, and might be like, nah, shorty, go read this, go read the autobiography of Malcolm X, go think about this, go do this. Like, nah, it's a different way, right? Like, nobody's one thing. Like, we're all walking contradictions full of ideas and thoughts and feelings. And, just because mainstream media wants to box us in, it doesn't mean like the neighborhood don't work like that.
You're right.
Yeah, your most gangster dude in the neighborhood, he might be in the anime or something,
Yeah.
and he get his packs off. So everybody's complex.
I'm glad you raised that point, because one of the things that I really dislike, I'm trying to remove the word hate from my vocabulary because I really don't hate anything. But one of the things I really dislike a lot is people, particularly people outside of the community, whether it be Black or white, but disproportionately, this is something that a white person might say, people who say, Kweli, I like you so much. You represent so much for hip hop. You're not like these other gangster rappers. I like, Kweli, I listen to you because fuck Gucci, man. Kweli, I listen to you because I don't like what the baby has to say. It's like, nah, brother, don't weaponize me against them brothers. Don't use my name to tear them brothers down. Like, nah, I don't play that at all.
Yeah, that's not where it's at. It was also cool to read about your family and how you have a lineage of Black artists in your family. I want to say starting with Stanley Green Sr. I don't know if it went back further than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about beyond that, but yeah, Stanley Green Sr. My grandfather was certainly a very humble and excellent working actor. He was in Nothing But a Man with Sidney Poitier. He was in The Landlord with Beau Bridges. He played Uncle M in The Wiz. And because of that, I was in The Wiz as a little kid, little baby flying around as a star when Lena Horne was singing. My father was in movies with Sidney Poitier. My father was a young actor. He did the plays back in the days. And I get that from them. My grandmother, Javodi, who I named my label after, she was an actress. She was a key cast member on the soap opera Guiding Light for a number of years.
And when I read that, I was wondering, like, there's a confidence piece that a lot of young artists look for, and I was wondering if you feel like having people in your family that embraced art and worked as artists, you feel like that had anything to do with you early on in your career as you were trying to find your voice?
Well, yeah, it helped. It made it real for me. I mean, my uncle Stanley Green Jr., world famous photographer, he just passed away recently. He's an artist, but the thing he was most famous for was war and conflict region photography. He was in the Kremlin when the Kremlin fell, and his pictures are the pictures that you see in Life magazine when the Kremlin fell. But yeah, it made me understand that a career in the arts was not just a possibility, but could be quite lucrative. My grandparents, they moved into a house in New Rochelle. My father was raised in New Rochelle. He went to NYU and he met my mother at NYU, and then he became, a Brooklyn resident after that. But my grandparents, for that house, they don't have that house. We've sold that house now, but they had a big, huge house when we were living in Brooklyn in small apartments. And so when I went to go see my grandparents, they would have this huge house. And I remember thinking as a kid, like, wow, okay, they got this from acting. And neither one of them were famous. They weren't famous people. They were just working actors. And so that the idea that you could work as an artist, whether you be famous or not, was intriguing to me.
Yeah, that's a real thing. Like that's the beauty even of of being in a city like New York, you're just exposed to so much. Like whereas in Baltimore, if you came from Baltimore, you would never meet a working journalist or like an actor or like anybody in any of these professions. And that's why, like, I mean, me and my artist friends, we do so much in the neighborhoods we come from, in the city in general, because we know we have to be those people that we didn't have coming up. So like just to see it, it makes it real. I really, really, really enjoy just you going to high school, you running around the city, even like, you know, before you went to the boarding school, but just being in the city, or even when you were at the boarding school and coming back home and hanging out in the village, and just being in the city, coming of age as a young person who was a part of the culture, but also watching the culture become this big global conglomerate, like people, you know, who you probably were in and out of battles with, getting record deals, becoming superstars, dropping albums, and you got a chance to, as you were growing, to see all of that. Can you take us to some of the early days, just being in Brooklyn or going down to the city and being in the village and just being around while all of these things were coming into play?
Yeah, the village is such a special place, and I write a lot about it in the book a lot. On my show, People's Party, last night, I interviewed Onyx, and I interviewed Sticky and Fredro. And I remember hearing about Sticky and Fredro just from being in the village, because they was nice as barbers and they was nice as dancers before Onyx was a thing. And one thing that there was an overlap there, like these guys come from a harder circumstance. We all born in Flatbush, Brooklyn, all of us. But then they moved out to Queens, to Southside Queens, and they had a harder upbringing than I did. But one thing that they say in their story is what separated us from everybody else in Queens is we were travelers. We got on that train and we went to the village. And when they said that, a light bulb went in my head. I'm like, that's exactly what it was for me. I would be in Brooklyn, and the dudes I was going to junior high school with, we would all end up just hanging out on the corners. And I noticed the more we hang out in the corners, the more we having run-ins with Low Lives and DCEP. And now we drinking more 40s. And now we think about maybe we should be selling drugs. Like it started to become that type of thing. And I was like, nah, I don't want to. I saw that path happening early. I'm like, I want to see some stuff. And being, you hit the nail on the head when you talked about a New York privilege, the privilege of growing up in New York City, and being around people, working actors and journalists, stuff like that. That's absolutely correct. Because I can't relate to living in a place that doesn't have that. But another thing that we had was the best public transportation system on the planet. And the best, yeah. And it's like, for me, I lived in a two-fare zone, so I had to take the bus to the train, right? Mm-hmm. But even, like, I would either walk to the train because I was young and had energy. I had Timberlands on. I walked a mile and a half in them Timberlands in the snow, or we had dollar vans because we had a Caribbean community. So if I didn't have enough to get on the bus or didn't feel like getting on the bus, I just pay for a dollar van. And the train was free. It wasn't free, but we treated it like it was free. If somebody paid a token, we looking at you like you crazy. Like, what you doing? Right. You don't got to do that. Why you paying? Just hop the turnstile. So being able to hop the turnstile for free to get on the best public transportation system in the world, to go to the best city in the world for arts, to be right there, to be able to go to 42nd Street and be in 42nd Street in under 45 minutes, or to be in the village just for free. Like I could walk out of my house and walk to the train station and hop that turnstile and be in Greenwich Village without spending no money. And I was just introduced to a whole different paradigm, a whole different cultural community. If I call it the stew, if I come out of that stew, if I didn't have that, if I didn't have those creative people to bounce off of, whether it's spoken word poets, whether it's hardcore rappers like Onyx, whether, spoken word people like Mums the Schema, Saul Williams, Agent 99, Reggie Gage, and Care More, comedians like Charlie Barnett and Dave Chappelle even was in the park back then. You had magicians, you had jugglers, you had people doing card tricks, and just it was everything.
What's crazy is like when you talk about how Giuliani broke the park up with like the style and all that, because I think about like hip hop artists, rappers in Baltimore are targets of some of these local police officers. There was a young rapper who had his big break where he was supposed to open up. He was supposed to open up for Boosie, and Boosie is real big in Baltimore, so it was being like promoted crazy all around the neighborhood. Like we don't even, this the age where we're not even running around with flyers and all that, but people have flyers on all the houses and everything because we wanted to see this kid who was from our block participate in this show. And the police officer actually arrested the rapper just because of that, just to make sure he couldn't make the show. And then he ended up staying for like a year. And then they tried to make him sit for like a longer amount of time because the prosecutor was going on maternity leave or like some crazy shit like that. So like when you wrote about Giuliani and his racist culture, his racist mentality, and how he would see, you know, black people, whatever, had the energy to create policy to break that up was just like something that people really, really need to hear, in my opinion.
I used to listen to WBAI, Gary Bird. He had a show, The Gary Bird Experience, and he used to call Giuliani, and he used to talk about him every day. So it's weird when Giuliani ran for president the first time as America's mayor. You know, us from the conscious black community in New York, we was like, yo, what narcotic are y'all smoking? Like, how are y'all not seeing through this man? The country largely sees through him now in the Trump era. You know, he really showed his ass. You know, but he showed himself to be exactly who Gary Bird back then was, you know, saying he was. And I remember we used to smoke weed in the park and rap and freestyle. And I was actually looking for a record deal. And I was taking my demo because all the labels were in the Village area, taking my demo to all the labels, and I stopped in the park to smoke. And you know, I got arrested. I got arrested for a little roach clip, like a little half roach clip. And you know, I think I might get the numbers wrong, and I encourage this. I have a lot of respect for Salon readers and subscribers because they're smart people who deal with peer-reviewed sources. So forgive me if I get these numbers wrong, but something like there was like tens of thousands. I want to say 50,000 arrests that like quality of life crimes arrest. And out of I'm not even gonna give the number because I want to give an inaccurate number. But out of all the crimes life arrests that were made that first year, like 90% of them were thrown out. You know, and that's just a waste of resources. That's just, you know, putting on a show. That's not really solving anything. That's all that's doing is creating more of a police state, and that's exactly what Giuliani did. And communities of color, he was trying to bring more tourists in. We saw the Disneyification of 40 Deuce under Giuliani, and it sucked a lot of the soul out of the city and got a lot of people of color to have records and be in a system that wouldn't have been in the system.
He's the same, you know, Mr. Police, but he's the same crook that was just trying to sell pardons a couple of months ago. So like, you know,
oh yeah,
people need to when we have our complaints and our critiques and our anger towards somebody like that, you know, that's where it comes from.
Yeah, he's the worst people. He is the worst example of human beings. If aliens landed here and they say, who is the worst? You point at Giuliani, like Chappelle said that they like Batman villains. He said like Trump is the Joker and Giuliani is the Penguin. And if you follow Batman, you know the Penguin spent some time as mayor, right. So it's accurate.
I think one of the things that a lot of people are going to pick up in your book, which is extremely important, is the power of education. And I'm speaking to, you know, the education that you receive from the schools that you went to, and yourself as a student, but I'm also talking about the street education. As a young person, you learn so much outside. You know, yeah. you don't understand like becoming a 5%er by sitting on the steps. You go outside and you meet people and you talk to people and you're in a bookstore and you're selling books, but at the same time you're reading those books and you just constantly seeking knowledge. And I think a lot of people, you know, think that education starts and stops inside of schools, But I think reading this book will show people that education is everywhere. You just got to be open to receiving it and trying to obtain it.
Yeah, I speak about my privileges a lot in this book because I have a lot of them. And I am also part of marginalized communities. I'm also part of an underprivileged community. And I also am a Black man in America. So, I have the same racial trials and tribulations and struggles. But one of my privileges, in addition to my New York privilege, is the privilege, and this is one of my greatest privileges, of being raised by educators. And I make fun of my mother sometimes. Like my mother, now at families or holiday time, everybody be on Zoom now. So my mother was like, okay, for Christmas on the Zoom, everybody with kids, the kids are going to put on a talent show. And we want to see everybody's talent. And you could do it ahead of time, make a little video and this and that. And I'm thinking, it makes me think of my childhood, because that's the type of things I used to do, because I was raised in the house of educators. And there was a little kerfuffle with the family, because some people in the family felt like my mom was trying to give everybody homework. You know what I'm saying? I was like, she's like, because they said that my aunt was like, yo, this feel like homework. We got to, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I pulled my mom to the side, I called her on the side. I'm like, yo, you're an educator. This is fun to you. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's fun to me too, but it's not fun to everybody to participate in that way. And that's not a diss. Obviously, I wouldn't be dissing my family. And it doesn't mean that just because someone doesn't want to participate in something like that, that they're less smarter than me or that they're less educated than me. But it just goes to show you that I was raised by people who put an emphasis on presenting what you've learned, presenting what you know. And it's also something I struggle with, because I know that most people don't have the privilege to grow up like that. And so it's a struggle for me. And I use my mother as an example because I love her, but it's hard for my mother to be around ignorant people. Mm. And me, as someone who's in the music business, well, I'm around ignorant people all the time. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, I gotta learn how to not make that become a judgment.
Right.
I don't say I have to learn. I think I have learned how to be able to be like, okay, I have been privileged to know more, to learn more, to be around more, to see more, to experience more. But that doesn't mean that someone else's experience is less valuable. But how can I use my privilege to elevate the person who has not seen the things I've seen, the person who has not been educated in the manner that I have been, but who's still valuable, whose life still needs to be respected?
You've done it a lot in your music. And I also I truly feel like the world doesn't even have the ability to accept artists like Kanye West without Talib. The world doesn't even understand the different realities that Kendrick and Cole bring to the table without a Talib Kweli putting it down and showing that other side, or just opening our eyes up to the many different complexities that exist within our neighborhoods. How do you feel about your impact and just like the state of hip hop from a conscious perspective?
I mean, I'm so blessed and humbled. I really am. I really truly am. Because of Jay-Z, it's become a thing to use my name as a metric or a standard for consciousness in hip hop. So whenever people are trying to represent, like from 2 Chainz to Kendrick to Pusha T to, I could go down the list of rappers who have said my name in their songs. Conway just recently did it, where they trying to show their conscious side. And it's like, you show your conscious side by saying Talib Kweli name in a rhyme. You know what I'm saying? So it's funny to me, but I'm honored and I'm blessed. And the artist you spoke about, Kendrick shouted me out on I forget the name of the song. One of those overly dedicated songs. He shouted me out and Common out at the same time, years before he got his deal. And then in interviews, he would always talk about me. Kanye talked about me on his album, put me on his albums, took me on tour because I took him on tour. Kanye has always showed the love. J. Cole, man, that brother Cole, man. 2 of J. Cole's hit records, he name drops me in 2 of his hit records. So it's like, I could tell that I be on his mind a lot when he's thinking about making these records, because he keeps saying my name. And it just feels like it feels right. I love and respect my peers, older and younger than me, who have shown me this type of love.
You write about your relationship with Kanye, and what I like the way you approached it, because you know it's easy to rip them apart for the Trump antics and the goofy Candace Owens, wherever she came from. But you didn't throw him away like a lot of people. You tell the whole story instead of just telling a piece of it. What do you think? What do you think? A healing process between Kanye and the people who he's hurt. What the Trump antics looks like.
Well, I'm glad you said that. I told the whole story, particularly in cancel culture, because I'm all down for accountability. But what cancel culture has become, because it's in the hands of the wrong people too often, is to take one flaw or one mistake or one thing that you disagree with someone and throw away the whole baby with the bathwater, as if they haven't given you this mountain of great content and stuff like that. And the people who are loudest about it are the people who contribute the least. If you're somebody who doesn't really contribute to society, it's very easy for you to get with the concept of throwing somebody out. Because you know why? Because we can throw you out easily. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're somebody who don't have the record and history of Kanye West, if all I know about you is that you're some anonymous person on the internet who got some nonsense to say, I can cancel you. I can block you. I don't have to listen to you. But somebody like Kanye, I'm way more hesitant to do that. I will say, though, you used the right word. The people, harm. Kanye's opinions and public statements have caused a lot of harm to a lot of Black people, to a lot of marginalized people. That can't be ignored. And so because of the harm that is caused, I don't have a problem with people saying, I can't fuck with Kanye. I don't have a personal problem with people saying, I want to cancel Kanye. If that's a personal decision you have to make, I have no argument for that because of how harmful his words have been. I am not in a position to do that because I am uniquely positioned. This man is not some abstract celebrity who I've never had a personal conversation with. This man is my friend. This man is my brother. And a friendship means the world to me. I don't agree with, I can't name one person that I agree with everything they say. I can't name not one person in the world. We also, in this new era of cancel culture, we seem, and it's particularly around politics, we have this, it's very toxic for us to be like, if this politician doesn't agree with every single thing I say, then he's the devil. I can't, not I disagree with him, but I will never support him or his party ever. If they don't agree with every single, like that's toxic.
Massive groupthink, all groupthink.
Yeah, you're right. That's exactly what it is. So obviously I don't agree with everything that Kanye says or does, but I was very clear with what I said in the book. I'm never going to stop being Kanye's friend or brother. Just as long as he supports Trump, I find it hard to publicly support his artistic output. That doesn't mean I won't take his calls. That don't mean I won't. If I'm DJing a party, I probably won't play no Kanye records because it's triggering to me. It's triggering to other people. When I hear his records, I think about Trump, and I'm like, I don't want to feel like this.
Why can't people get that? Why can't people separate the two? Why can't people understand that, okay, a person does something that you don't like or you don't agree with, it triggers you, it upsets you or whatever, you hold them accountable for what they did without trying to erase them from the narrative completely. How come people can't understand that? And these are the same people who want to be forgiven when they do things that's not right.
Well, these people don't live with the scrutiny of the spotlight, and the people who are excited about the downfall. That, it's sexy to them. It's like watching a car crash.
Oh,
I agree, and yeah, I agree. I'm happy to report that in private conversations with me, as well as a couple of times publicly, Kanye has rescinded his Trump support. There are people who say too little, too late. Well, I agree with that. I agree that he should have rescinded his Trump support. He should have never supported Trump to even have to rescind his support. But I'm happy that my brother has rescinded his Trump support. To speak to your question about the healing process, I think that's the first thing you do is you rescind your support for Trump, which he did. And I think the next thing you do is you hold yourself accountable for the fact that it was harmful. I think he has to publicly say, my actions were harmful for it to be a healing process. But Kanye is also very talented and very blessed. And the power of the jam is a real thing. We all knew who R. Kelly was when Chocolate Factory came out. You know, even though we didn't have the court documents. But Chocolate Factory came out and it was like, yeah, but that's that jam. Did you hear that Ignition remix? Like you come with that jam, and people are willing to forgive a lot of things. You know, and so Kanye, forgive me if it seemed like I'm comparing what Kanye did to R. Kelly. I'm not. I absolutely am not. As bad as what Kanye has done, it doesn't compare. It's not comparable to what R. Kelly did. And for me, I don't see it. Forgiveness is everything, especially I'm not a Christian person, but you're a Christian, you should believe that everyone is due a chance of forgiveness. I'm not here to cape for, I don't give a fuck about whether or not people forgive R. Kelly. You know, that's not my dog. I don't have a dog in that fight at all. Or I do have a dog in that fight, but Kanye, I am concerned about whether or not people forgive him. So I'm interested in the healing process. And I hope that he can, I hope that it's not just him making a good song that makes people forget about it, because he does have that superpower where he can make a good song and everybody be like, that's that jam though. I hope that it's real, actual work on his part and I can report that from private conversations I've had with him, I feel like he's in a place to do some of that work.
So the top 5 conversation comes up in your book, and I was just curious, I would ask you as a hip hop artist, how do you feel with that only being a part of hip hop culture? Like you would never hear people be out there like, yo, who your top 5? Luther Vandross, Smokey Robinson, like
well, I think it speaks to the beauty of hip hop. I think it shows that hip hop, we care more. It shows we care more. Y'all don't care about music like we care about this music. Y'all don't. As if you're a true hip hop fan, then, well, damn, you're gonna read the credits. Are you gonna see where the sample come from? Mm-hmm. And if you see the sample come from Roy Ayers, well, then you're gonna go listen to Roy Ayers. If you're a hip hop, the reason why D Nice, that Club Quarantine thing, did so well, in addition to D Nice fly style with his hats and his Rolodex of relationships from Beyonce to Michelle Obama, which I know he texted people like, yo, come on my live, tell people you what. He's very smart with that shit. But in addition to that, D Nice is part of a crew that are some of the best hip hop DJs in the world. I'm talking about DJ Scratch, Clark Kent, Rich Medina, you know, all the originals. They're the best hip hop DJs in the world. Biz Markie, Kid Capri. To be the best hip hop DJ in the world, you have to know every genre of music. If you ever notice, go on IG Live, you watch Tony Touch or watch Maceo, they can go any genre. You never know. They might do a rock set. They might do a freestyle set. They might do a salsa set. They might do just a samples or just music from the 70s, just 90s hip hop. I'm gonna just do 2000s hip hop. Hip hop DJ can go anywhere because we care more about music. We know more about music than everybody, just from the nature of how hip hop is made. It's made as a collage of things that have come in the past. At least real hip hop is, in my opinion. And so that's what it is. We're so passionate about it. We're passionate about it like how people are passionate about sports. We're passionate about it like how people are passionate about just, you know, hip hop is life.
Mm-hmm. Facts. What's next for Talib?
I got this album with Diamond D coming in end of April, the Gotham album. Black Star album Madlib is on its way. We've been working on that. And that's, you know, and some other surprises that will be revealed soon.
Good. Well, thank you for coming on. Why don't you tell everybody where they can grab Vibrate Higher, a rap story?
You can buy it anywhere books are sold. That's Amazon or anywhere. But if you're the type of person who wants to go to Black bookstores, you could click the link in my bio. I have a link that takes you directly to the independent and the Black bookstores. You can also come to my store, my independent Black store, Ikiru Books, online at qualityclub.com.
Congratulations, brother, and thanks again.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.